Welcome everybody from wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am so excited to be here with Patrick and Matt. We are going to, as I saw the question come in at the end of the last session, we are going to talk about how agentic AI is applied to procurement. And I am joined by two folks. I'm going to have them introduce themselves, but they are no doubt experts in the topic. And hopefully today we can delve into both how this affects people and individuals all the way down to technical folks. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find anybody more technical than Matt and Patrick. So with that, Patrick, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, and then I'll have Matt introduce yourself.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. And happy to be here today. So for those of y'all that don't know me, I'm Patrick Marlowe. I'm a product manager here at Google as of this year. Previously, I was a staff engineer on the Vertex Applied AI incubator team. I'm focused in the kind of conversational AI space. I've been doing this for the better part of 12, 13 years now. And one of the big things that I enjoy doing is doing a lot of education and public speaking like this. To just make sure that I'm helping do my part in the world to upskill everyone in different industries. I've had, kind of the fortunate place to be able to work recently over the last year or so with a lot of procurement professionals and a lot of supply chain professionals, and kind of hearing the things that the problems that you're working on in this space. And I don't particularly have this background, but I'm a technologist by trade, and so for me this is about also learning about what are the problems that are in this supply chain and procurement space, and learning how I can help connect the dots with the technology that's available today to kind of help solve some of the hardest problems that y'all have in this space. So very happy to be here today.
Thank you. And I'm just going to shout out for Patrick. He co-authored a very fantastic white paper, and the Google team. We'll post the link to it in the chat, or maybe I'll if I can figure it out in the background, I'll post the document in the chat. But very, very comprehensive and very technical. So for those of you that really want to delve deeper, that is a great white paper. Now, speaking of technical, my go-to person is Matt. So Matt, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Dr. Epstein. So my name is Matt McCarrick. I'm the founder of Sligo AI. I'm closing in on 25 years in the procurement game. About half of it upstream, sourcing, contract management, spend analysis. The other half downstream, doing procure-to-pay implementations, which took many years off my life. A couple of years ago, I just kind of was watching what's going on, decided to go back to school to upskill myself on AI and machine learning, just to kind of upskill and stay relevant. And it was in that process that Sligo AI was founded, right? So as I began school, kind of drawing on that 20 plus years of experience, I started saying, that's great, but that's going to be a problem in the enterprise. You're not going to be able to do it that way. That's not how it works, those types of things. So that's really kind of that evolution of thought and trying to marry enterprise procurement and Gen AI. That's been like all I've been doing every waking moment for the last 2 years.
And just shout out to Matt. He made Sligo made the list of the coolest things of 2024 that I saw. And if you've seen me talk about virtual Elouise, this is the cheeky fellow that decided to do that. A bit of housekeeping. I will be monitoring the comments because I know we're delving into topics everybody has millions of questions about. So I will interject comments as we go, as I see them, and we'll save some time at the end. But with that, I'm going to jump right in, and I really want to ask, we're going to talk about sort of the business end of this, and then we're going to get into sort of the technical end of this. And so the question is this real? Are we using it? And if so, where? And the reason I ask that is because it seems like every day, and I made this prediction at the end of last year, everybody has decided that they are an agentic workforce expert, and they've put on their expert hats. Sometimes we take it off to put the tariff hat on or whatever macro disruption, but it seems like everybody's telling us what what the all about agentic AI, and like, is this real? Is this real? And maybe I'll start with you, Patrick, and then sort of let you respond, Matt.
Yeah. So the short answer is yes, it's very much real. It very much works. There are hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of different use cases that it's applicable in. I think there's been, typically when new technologies kind of come on the scene, you've got, I'm sure there's some graph out there about like, early adopters curve and all these different things like that, right? So the interesting thing that's happened with Gen AI over the last few years is that it it progressed way more rapidly than any technology that we've seen probably since the internet has come out, right? And I would even say that the internet actually progressed quite slow in comparison to what's happened with Gen AI, right? So, you know, typically when a new technology comes out, everyone has this kind of time to sort of like see the early adopters and what they're doing and sort of slowly kind of ramp into it and get comfortable with it. Gen AI just kind of hit the ground running at like 1,000 miles an hour, and everyone was like, "What's going on? This is way too fast, and I don't understand it." And the thing is it hasn't stopped, right? And so if it would have stopped in that first year, we would have had some time to kind of like really grok it and really understand what was going on and kind of digest all that. But it hasn't stopped. It's just there's just more and more and more coming every single day, right? And so the first thing I would say is like I think that it's for most people in the industry today, they're just completely like deer in headlights as to how fast this technology has been moving. And like, it's like they're just completely afraid of like, I don't even know where to get into this like rushing river right now because it's going really crazy. But the fact is that like that rushing river it's not all hype. There's like some actual real world use cases and real meat and potatoes use cases in there that we can get into. And so, I mean, we'll talk more about it today, but I just want to say like, yes, absolutely 100%. It's not just like smoke and mirrors and toy demos and things like that. There are really real use cases.
All right, Matt, what do you think? Is it real?
Yeah, I would say, I hope so. That's what it is. I would just say this to procurement professionals, right? Again, I've been so steeped in this for the last 2 years, and I'm disoriented by all the noise. And like I said, I spent all my time on this. So no one should feel insecure or disturbed in any way that they're disoriented, they're confused, they can't figure out that apples to apples thing. There's a reasonable excuse for it. So yes, it is real. I think, and one of the things I really appreciate that both Dr. Epstein and Patrick are doing is they're educating people, right? Demystifying a lot of this, and we'll get into it a little further in this talk around, all right, what are agents? How does it actually work? And how does it actually fit with the world I live in today? And I think that's kind of, I think that's the work to be done in 2025 in the procurement function.
And you're right. Like that's a lot of like Patrick said. That's a lot of what my work is sort of educating people and getting people comfortable with this. And to Patrick's point, this kind of like hit us out of nowhere. And I call it the just chat GPT moment. And it's because we all had to deal with this in our personal lives that we it just carried over into the enterprise. But Matt, I'm gonna flip it right back to you. What do we need to know? What do you think we need to know?
So I think two things I would say at the top. So the technology in this wave of innovation is not as difficult to implement or adopt as all this technology we did 10, 15, 20 years ago in the last transformation, right? So the technology and the ability to implement, the degree of difficulty is lower. However, those procurement organizations that struggle with data hygiene, there's no silver bullet. There's no silver bullet and everyone, there's no silver bullet. So to me, for procurement organizations, like awareness, right, of, get yourself, slowly or quickly, whatever your capabilities are, right, getting yourselves ramped on what Gen AI is and what these agents can and can't do, but also, data readiness. I think I say this all the time. Data readiness is the long pole in the tent for this. All this exotic use cases that everyone's dreaming about. The reason I think everyone's struggling with it is because they don't, data is the foundation of all Gen AI strategy in the enterprise. Full stop. So if you don't have your data in order, so I would say the best use of time, if you got no budget for AI, if you know no approval, you can do a ton of work in terms of organizing your data universe, structuring it, identifying where does it sit. Let's get some eyeballs on it so we know what the quality is, that type of work.
Okay, and just so, and I know everybody's probably going to ask this question in the second sort of the technical part. We are going to talk more about data, and I just want to echo one point. So what I talk about for success in the agentic era, if we will, or AI era, is really it comes down to hard work, creativity, and motivation. It is no longer about technical skills. It's no longer about super business skills. It is about very core individual personal skills. Now, with that as the sort of preamble, Patrick, I mean, what's the goal here? Like, okay, so that's what we need to know, but what is the goal of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think really the way to respond to that is to say it depends. You know, like what are
Hey, you
your
must be a
goals?
consultant.
Yeah. I hang out a lot with our UX team, our UX research team. They say it depends all the time. You know, it really does depend on like what are the goals for your organization, right? You know, like I think you really have to start kind of being passionate about the problems that you want to solve and not thinking about the technologies per se, right? So it's like if the problem that you're trying to solve, I'll pick an industry so like in call centers, for example, if the problem that call centers are trying to solve is like deflection of calls to their human agents or reduction of how much time the human agents spend on the phone, like let's focus on solving that problem, and then let's figure out what solutions and technologies are best to solve that problem, right? So when we say like what is the goal of agentic AI, the goal of agentic AI is to be one tool in a toolbox that you can use to solve the problems that you have. But it's not the only tool in the toolbox, right? Like I always talk about like the hammer and nail analogy, right? Like I think everyone has been enamored so much by Gen AI and LLMs and agents, and they're just saying like, I need to use agents for everything. And so they pick up that agent hammer and they go around just swinging it at everything in an organization, you know? And maybe sometimes this is because, you know, senior leadership is saying like, hey, Matt, you got to get out there and do something with Gen AI because everyone else is doing it. And they, you know, kind of get that like FOMO, you don't want to feel left behind thing. But like the reality is like we got to pause, we got to flip it on its head, like be passionate about the problem you're solving first, and then like work backwards from that to pick the technology. Maybe it's Gen AI, maybe it's not AI at all. Maybe it's a technology that already exists that's out there and it's boring and it's dull, but it gets the job done. And that's what's important is like solving that problem first, being passionate about that problem.
Thank you for saying that. Is sometimes just because Gen AI can do it doesn't mean it's the fastest way, the cheapest way, and sometimes there are less sexy ways of solving the problem. But
Yeah.
please, nobody tell me we can do it in paper and fax. I will never believe
Yeah.
that ever again. Matt, what do you think? Like, what is this good for? And sort of related to that, do we start with use cases? Do we start somewhere else? Where do we even think about starting?
Yeah, so I believe kind of it's even a step before that. So I have a working thesis, right? And there's two types of procurement functions. There's the procurement functions who are letting their suppliers figure out the Gen AI strategy for them. And then there's procurement functions who are saying, what's our strategy, right? What are we trying to accomplish? What's our universe of data? What are our touch points? What does that look like? So to me, I think that even is kind of a precursor. Because here's the thing, I keep coming back to it. You can't solve use cases. And in fact, you probably can't identify quality use cases until you have your data, until you have your universe mapped out, right? You need a taxonomy of whether it's your policies, whether it's your ESG stuff, whether it's where your vendor contracts sit, whether it's where all your corporate legal templates, where you handle your category management, where you do your sourcing, where you transact, like all of that feeds into, right? That's all elements of your Gen AI strategy. So how do you have a Gen AI strategy when you don't even have that mapped yet? So my advice to everyone is data readiness, map your universe, and in that process, what you'll find is the use cases are going to present themselves to you, right? Because everyone knows, right? The core value prop of all of this is productivity and efficiency. Period.
Okay. Okay. So if that's the case, if I'm a CPO or advising one, and I have 100 employees today, what's the goal? Because if and regardless of what my data quality is, and we're going to start the next session section by talking about that, but like I have 100 people today, and I'm getting pressured to the CEO saying, "Hey, AI is going to solve everything, so get rid of people or redeploy people." Like I'm sort of in it, yeah. Well, it's for both of you because like the question is because I can deploy agents and and so what do I do with them and how do I think about taking this? I've got people running sourcing events. I've got category managers. I've got people chasing POs and invoices. Back to non-sexy technology. So like, how do I think about bridging this sort of magic button of AI with the reality of 100 people doing garbage work?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one first, Matt, if you're cool. So the cool thing, and one of the things Matt said just a second ago is that like the difference with this technology is that it's way easier to implement than any other technologies that we've done in the past. So like, what do you do with those 100 people? Like you need to educate those 100 people on generative AI technologies and on agentic technologies. Like that should be table stakes. If you as a leader are not investing in this type of education for your company, you might as well just go sit on the sidelines because other leaders are investing in it for their companies and they're going to pass you up. You know, there was something that we we're all kind of saying internally for a long time. Like, I know you hear this hype all over the web and on social media, like AI is going to replace this person and that job and all that stuff. I don't particularly believe that. Like, and I'm the guy building it, right? You know, like I'm right in the midst of it. But what I do believe is that the person that is using AI will replace the person that is not using AI. And that is a fact. That is 100% fact.
Yeah.
And so I don't look at AI as a replacer. I look at AI as an augmenter, right? As a tool, right? You know, the person that has a calculator is going to be able to like do math faster than the person without a calculator, right? Like that's just a known, right? And so like we should look at AI and agents and things like that in the same exact vein. So educating those 100 people, like just giving them the bare minimum tools, you know, whether that's access to, you know, a Chat GPT app or access to a Gemini app or access to, you know, Notebook LM or something like that, where they can just very, it's not super intrusive. It's just like, hey, here's a web interface. You can talk to it. You can put some documents in it. It'll help you with your day-to-day tasks. Like that's really the easiest way to get started because it's not super intrusive, right? Like you're not having to do this huge investment. In fact, most of these tools are free. You can do them for free online, you know? And so that's like, you shouldn't be afraid of that piece. And we can talk about data privacy and all that other stuff later. But like the number one thing is like, you have to educate yourself. You have to get started.
Yeah, and I would just like interject there that the one piece of advice when I do my speaking and sort of educating is just do it. Just do something, try something, do something in your personal life, and for $20 a month, for whether you use Gemini or OpenAI or it doesn't even matter, you could do unbelievable things and things that as a Gen Xer I can't even begin to imagine. Like I'm just blown away at what is out there, and even if you don't want to spend the $20 a month, just watch YouTube videos of other people doing it. I mean, this education thing, the insights are democratized and it's so easy to, or it's so accessible, I should say. Matt, anything you want to add to that? Otherwise, I see a lot of questions.
I'm writing notes because I thought, first of all, I think let's tell the Connect House people they should stamp that quote from Patrick. I love that about it's not going to replace people. Like carve that into stone. It's going to be replaced by people who do Gen AI. I think that's brilliant.
Although I might debate that, but we can do that at the end.
Well, let's talk. We'll talk about it. So I would say this. You know, in the last 6 months, I've probably spoken to 30 to 40 CPOs and or COE leaders, and never once did I hear someone talk about cutting headcount. In fact, it's kind of counterintuitive, but for the first time in my career now, I'm doing these meetings with CPOs and COEs, and they've got data scientists on their team. They've got API engineers on that. I've been around this game a long time. Procurement has never had data scientists and API engineers embedded in the function. So I actually see expanding roles inside procurement. And I'll say this, all my friends in procure tech are not going to like this, but like what's the goal? The goal is to get rid of all this B2B SaaS. They're all complaining about UX overload. We have too many interfaces. We got to go here for CLM. We got to go here for sourcing. We got to go here for P2P. We got to go here for spend analysis. We're doing everything local. As soon as somebody leaves, bang, all that tribal knowledge goes out the door with them. So for them, it's really about how do we get our arms around our B2B SaaS footprint and our reliance on it, captivity, depending on your viewpoint. And I think that's the goal. So I think it's adding different skill sets to procurement and taking out B2B SaaS. I do not hear anyone talking about reducing the size of their teams, which I would have expected. Haven't, not once.
Yeah, and the way I frame it is it's a choice. Maybe you increase the people, maybe you decrease, but it's at least an option on the table. But yeah, I agree, Matt. Now, in the chat we've got a bunch of topics on data. So what I want to do is sort of pivot us into the data discussion, although there are a few comments that I will bring back towards the end. But I'm going to make the question simple. But Antonio, I see your comment, Isabella, around the data drama. Isabella pointed in the comments. Okay, I have bad data. Where do I start? What do I do? I'm gonna leave it. I want you both to respond to that because every organization I go into has bad data, especially bad supplier data. And I, of course, turn that around and tell them that that's unacceptable and bad data is a leadership failure, but we still have to fix it. So what do I do? I want to do Gen AI, but I have bad data.
Yeah, I'll start with that. So I would say this goes back to what you said, Dr. Epstein, which is like you just have to get your hands dirty and you have to get started, right? So there was this promise of Gen AI that essentially, in the before times, before Gen AI, right? You had to be a machine learning engineer, someone that was actually trained in doing this stuff to collect and curate data very specifically, had to be high quality so that you could actually build good machine learning models that could do really good things, right? And we've mastered all that, for years now, right? With Gen AI, there was this promise that was like, actually, you don't have to be that practitioner anymore. You can just be like anyone off the street with any set of data and you just throw it at it and it magically works. But there's like a giant asterisk next to that magically works, right? Which is like, it works some of the time, right? And the thing is like, if you have bad data, and this kind of goes back to what Matt was saying, is like, maybe you don't have a full, you don't have the capital to invest in a full AI program or even a full data cleanup program. Like where you should start is basically like start, did I disconnect? Can you guys still hear me?
No, you're
okay,
good.
Cool. Sorry. Where you should start is, it's okay to start with that bad data and start with some Gen AI platform and take your bad data, stick it on that Gen AI platform and start asking questions. Because what's going to happen is that you're going to see right away what work that you're going to need to do to improve the data that you have, right? So like if you just want to get quick wins, there's probably somewhere in your data some decent information, right? So start with a couple of simple use cases, throw your data in, ask some questions, see if it's actually getting the right information out, and just sort of fact check it. Like, I mean, you have to do this. You have to do this to start, right? Just fact check. Did it pull the right piece of data out of my database? And then start asking yourself questions like, if it didn't pull the right piece of data, why did it not pull the right piece of data? Like a really pertinent example is we were working with a company. They were ingesting like thousands of PDFs in their knowledge base. And we were just, trying all these different queries to, see how it's extracting data from the PDS and stuff like that. And one use case was something around like, who's the current CEO of the company, right? And 80% of the time it would get the right answer, and about 20% of the time it would say the old CEO's name, and they were like, hey, your models are bad, this is wrong, like why does Gemini suck, all this other stuff. And we started looking at like the sources of like, where did it even get that piece of information from? And we were like, hey, you guys have 25 documents in this entire thing of 1,000 documents that actually still mention your old CEO all over it, as if he is the current CEO. So it's actually your data that's causing the model to be confused when like 80% of your documentation says that here's the new CEO and 20% of your documentation says here's the old CEO. Like, you need to clean your stuff up internally as well so that everything is up to date. And I think this is kind of what Matt gets at when it's like, what does bad data look like, right? Like, we want to be able to throw the kitchen sink at it and just expect perfection, but like, we don't even have that level of perfection in our data to begin with. So again, to summarize, go ahead and start with the bad data. It's okay as long as you're trying something, but really quickly start to, ask questions and inform yourself around like, why are there failures, and then go dig into that data and start cleaning it up.
Okay, Matt, I
Matt?
want you to respond to on data, but I want to interject something because Antonio had actually made an interesting point about feedback loops. And I think, Patrick, your example there is really good. So you have 80% of the documents say old CEO name and 20% new CEO name. But one of the things I found in my experience is if I just say, if I teach the machine, I say, well, that CEO, that's the old one. So that's the old CEO. So contextualize it as the old CEO, then I find that it actually the AI remembers or learns. I'm not sure what the even proper term is, because I actually record videos of me learning AI or Gen AI, and oftentimes I'll tell the machine something as I'm trying to figure out what it is I'm going to record, and then I go back to record. It's actually learned the thing, and I can't record the me teaching it.
Right. No, this is
All
a good
right.
point. I'm going to comment on that real quickly before Matt jumps in. Okay, because this is another thing. I think that people tend to believe that generative AI and agents are just going to be perfection, all the time, and like that's
Magic.
just not how this. It's magic. It's not how this technology works. Like, I would say, put yourself in the shoes of a person that just got hired at a brand new company, a giant company, by the way, not a small company where there's 20 people and you know everyone's name, but let's say 50,000 people work in the company, right? Now, imagine you're a brand new person at that company and someone looks at you and they say, hey, Patrick, do you know who the SVP of supply chain is? And then I go, I don't know, Matt. And then they look at me and they go, how could you get that wrong? How could you possibly not know who the SVP is? Don't you know it's Dr. Epstein? That's the most ridiculous. Like, why would you berate that new person for not having that very specific piece of knowledge, right? That's the same way generative AI works. It's like there needs to be some context. There needs to be some awareness of like, why would that person even have that information to begin with? And sorting through all the information. Even if I had two documents in front of me, what if they didn't explicitly say that Matt was the SVP versus Dr. Epstein being the SVP? Like, I would have to deduce that on my own. And so like, this is what Dr. Epstein's talking about, is like giving that very specific, clean bit of information of like, this is actually who the CEO is. This is the old CEO. That's very helpful to make sure the model's not confused.
Yeah. All right, Matt, bad data. What do you do?
Yeah. So before I do, I'm sorry to do this, but I just want to interject on, because you guys are both hitting on education and DIY, and I want to reinforce that, and with a good example. So I got a bunch of friends who are all like me, 20 plus year guys in the procurement game, and I have all of them on a self-education program in AI Studio, Patrick. I gave them prompts to train them up, and I'm explaining, like, they're learning. And I told them the only way you're going to do this is by getting your hands dirty. And the reason I picked AI Studio was because you can do multimodal, all different file types. You can ground your search. So I gave them like context windows and an assignment and sent them off to AI Studio. And I'm going to check in with them in a week or two. And I'm telling them, your procurement guys, jump up and down on it. So that's one. So I'm not only do I agree with you, I'm pushing the people I care about in my network who aren't up to skill yet on AI. You need to get your hands dirty, or you can just check out now. So two, data cleanliness. Don't be intimidated. Everyone's data is a mess. Everybody. Don't Don't be intimidated. Like I tell my kids all the time, you ever notice how like you climb a ladder and you get a few, you look at that ladder rung in front of you, you get a few, and next thing you know, you're pretty high up. That's what's going to happen here. Start with chunks, right, of data, like Patrick said, right? Hey, where are all our policies at? Let's get that. Where's our category management stuff? That's kind of like, and start in bits and pieces, right? And when you work with the tech, you learn, right? It's like you're learning how it works. You're learning how to ask the right questions. You're seeing what happens when you give it different types of data. And the last thing I want to say about data is it's very important to keep in mind there's two different types of data. We have all my data is dirty. Like, are we talking about text data or are we talking about tabular data? Because when it comes to Gen AI, those are two entirely different approaches. So text data, the good news there is there's this technique called vector embeddings and retrieval augmented generation. And in the enterprise, that's really helpful, right? Because what it's really doing is it's taking documents and basically Gen AI, basically the easiest analogy is creates like a DNA code for that particular document, right? And it goes into a database. And then every time you ask a query, it converts your query also. And now you're looking for a genetic match between you. So there's a lot of like cleanup that will happen organically if you do vector embeddings and stuff, but you still have work to do there. Tabular data gets tricky. Is that stuff sitting in Excel? Is that sitting in an SQL database? Is that sitting in a data lake? And then is that sitting in a third-party system? So just bear in mind, there's two different types of data. And, don't start small and you build wins, you build confidence. And that's how I did it.
Yeah. Okay. So just, yeah, you mentioned a few terms, vector embedding or retrieval augmented generate, like just whatever I got. I'm sure I got this wrong, and that's okay. And I'm going to get to Cheryl's comment here a little bit. We will sort of conclude here at the end. If you don't understand those terms, it's also okay. And I alluded to this at the beginning. Both Patrick and Matt are very technical, and that's good. Then there are going to be some people that are very technical, and then there are other people who don't. But people like myself that just, you know what, I don't actually care about any of that. I just want it to work. Tell me how to make it work and I'll make it work. Like, I'll follow the directions. Give it more context, fine, I'll give it more context. So like, I want to just let's let everybody know there's a spectrum. And if we're talking about something, or people are talking about something like even LLMs, and Cheryl, at the end I'll give some resources that we all like. Or that to get you started on your journey, including, and I saw a comment, I didn't know who, I can't remember who it was, but this notebook LM, I'll talk about that too, and give some like practical real world. But before we get there, I want to talk about architecture. So how do I think about this? And maybe we just even start at the beginning. There are 3 or 4 big providers of this technology, leaving out the corporate, the enterprise architecture for a moment. Just there's OpenAI, there's Gemini, there's Anthropic, maybe DeepSeek. I don't know. It's hard to tell. But how do we think about that? And then sort of like, what else do I need to know beyond that? Or is that all I need to know?
Yeah, I'm a bit biased on this one, so
Okay.
I'll lead with this. But actually, no, and it's not even biased because of Google. What I'm gonna say is that actually, if you really want, like, I'm not even gonna say a deep dive, but like if you want the sort of like C-suite executive level overview of this, I did a 30-minute presentation last year in April, and it's recorded and it's on YouTube, and it's all about like the fundamental architectures of these agents and like all the high level components and what's important about them. It's very accessible, like anyone can read it. Like, you don't have to be a practitioner. Like, it's meant for executives. So I would very much encourage you to go watch that video. It's called "What is a Generative AI Agent?" We'll get the link to everyone here. And if you want to go a little bit deeper, like Dr. Epstein mentioned, I did write a paper also that's a follow-up to that. It's about 42 pages, lots of funny analogies in there because I try to be a funny guy sometimes. But like, I think that it's also accessible, and it will also talk about more about the architectures and how these things work. But like the quick 30-second thing that you need to care about is like, you need to first care about, you have your models, right? And those models come from your model providers, which Dr. Epstein was just saying. You've got, Google's a model provider, OpenAI is a model provider, Anthropic's a model provider. You can get open source models from Hugging Face, and there's so many different model providers, but you kind of have the big ones. So models are kind of the first thing that you want to know about. Then you have what are called tools. And tools really, they're the same thing that you've been using for years. It's your API connections, right? It's your API into your CRM. It's your API into, your database, or all these different things. So like tools to like connect to the outside world. And then the last piece really is just what we kind of refer to as like frameworks or reasoning frameworks. And that's just how are you going to take these foundational components and start putting them together so that you can interact with them and talk with them and things like that. Some of this stuff just comes off the shelf. For example, Matt talked about AI Studio from Google. Like that's an off-the-shelf offering where you can just open it up. It's an application, and you can start using it. A lot of this stuff is just baked in. It's just drop-down menus, right? So those are super, super accessible, right? Gemini Chat is an accessible one. OpenAI ChatGPT is another accessible one. But if you want to actually, get your data science teams involved, you want to get your software engineering teams involved, that's where you can actually start getting deeper and going into like software development kits or SDKs, actual agent frameworks like LangGraph or LangChain or Google Vertex Agent Framework and things like that, which are much more code heavy. Obviously, probably wouldn't be for the majority of the audience, but that's how you can then build your own like fully customized framework for your procurement supply chain industry, right? Matt, I'll let you jump on that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think again, it kind of goes back to my point earlier about as an organization, right? A decision, right? Are we going to let our vendors figure this out for us and kind of attach our wagon to their horse or whatever the phrase is, or are we thinking about our own infrastructure, right? To Patrick's point, I don't think you want the approach should be you're agnostic to LLMs, right? Because how fast they're moving, like you don't want to be tied to one LLM. And honestly, that's a good due diligence question for all you procurement people out there when vendors coming to you telling you they have AI. Well, the question is, okay, what model are you using? And, do you offer other models? Because what happens, right? I'm not I think DeepSeek was a whole psyop. That's a whole other webinar we could do. I really do. But I think, generally speaking, I think what you want to do is let all these big guys, Google, Amazon, OpenAI, Anthropic, let them all duke it out because the customer's going to win, right? They're all going to get better. It's all going to get easier. So I think what's really more important is, right, how are we acting? What's our infrastructure? So Patrick I brought up AI Studio for Patrick. So for all you folks here on this webinar, if you guys are a Google shop, meaning you guys use Google Workspace, G Drive, that's your corporate account, you can use AI Studio and your InfoSec is covered.
Mm-hmm.
That goes right into your corporate drive. So you don't if you're a Google shop, you want to try it out, you shouldn't have any problems from InfoSec because everything's protected by Google's security, cloud security. So just keep that in mind. So in terms of, I know there's an increasing number of enterprises now using Google Workspace. But yeah, I would say infrastructure is the most important thing. And, don't tie your horse, whatever the phrase is, don't pick one LLM. Keep your options open and keep adopting the new stuff as it comes out. Google just dropped Gemini 2.0 Pro yesterday, right? You want to be in a position as an organization to be able to quickly test and adopt the new stuff as it comes out.
Okay. Now, that was a little on the technical end, and that was by design. No, it was good. It was good. It's not a judgment. But I also, for those of you that are not as technical like me, that I want to give you sort of another example. And Paul in the comments mentioned Notebook LM, which is actually a Google product, but this is not meant to. By the way, I use OpenAI a lot, so I have to admit that. But I came across Notebook LM. Shout out to Conrad Smith, who, and this is how we learn, right? Everybody's teaching everybody. And what that is I'm going to give it my my view. I'm not even sure it's technically correct, but it's a place where you can take all of your data, put it together, and use it like Chat GPT, but it's your data set. And I'm a historian by training. That's what I spend when I'm not doing procurement and supply chain. I'm doing that, and it's a place. What I was able to do is take all of massive pile of research, put it into Notebook LM, and now it helps me organize, and I can ask questions, and it creates just a sort of timeline of all my data. It does all these amazing things, and I know nothing about the underlying technical piece. And gets back to the DIY, the just do something. Doesn't matter what you do. And so if you are intimidated by building agents or whatnot, that doesn't mean it's the only thing to do, because what I did with Notebook LM is I took a bunch of data, I put it in there, I piped some websites in, which you just give it the URL and it goes and grabs the stuff. And if that sounds familiar, that's kind of the basics of category management. And so here you have a tool that every category manager could be using. And again, we'll deal with InfoSec separately, but like, just think of the power. And I learned this tool in like 3 minutes. And so I'm glad Paul brought that up, because there is what I'm doing. There's what Patrick and Matt are doing. And so there's a lot of in between. And so that's the importance of doing this. All right, so we're going to start to, go ahead.
I just want to add one thing. All of that work that you just did, what you said, uploading documents, like, you just built an agent. That is an agent. Like, there's a model under the hood there. You added the data sources, your docs and your slides and your PDFs and your websites. It's already built in the tools essentially to access that data. You built a personal agent for you. And this is what I'm getting at when you said, what should CPOs do with their 100 people that are sitting there? How do I train them? Get them all on Notebook LM right now, today. Everyone pick a few docs, upload them, and start playing around with it. So you realize, hey, I actually can build an agent for me personally for my day-to-day job right now that can just sit here and I can chat with it about, hey, like, how do I, maybe you're doing spin analytics, hey, here's a spreadsheet. Tell me, which of these are duplicates so that I can go in there and change them. Can you change them for me? Like, just simple things like this. And you can get started so fast. Like you said, you learned it in 3 minutes. It was very non-intrusive, right?
And I think I just had kind of an aha moment when you said that, because it's like, oh, you built an agent. And it's like, that was the last thing I would have said, that I built an agent, even though, but you're right. And I think sometimes the hype gets me at least, into this other space of, well, I'm not smart enough to have an agent or do an agent, but I actually was at least doing elements of an agent. And I think that's sometimes, because the question I want to move to is because we're starting to get towards the end. Like, what skills do people need to do, or what do they need to take? What should they take away today? What should they do at 9 o'clock Pacific when this is over, or whatever time it's over?
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I'm sorry. Is that for Patrick?
No, go ahead.
It's for both.
I was going to say, like, to me, like, I'm telling you what I'm telling all my friends in the game, which is intellectual curiosity, asking the right questions, and getting your reps in. And by reps, I mean, talk to a language model, give it a document, interrogate the documents using chat, right? Get your reps in. And because you develop an awareness, and Patrick will back me up on this. He talked about tools, right? APIs. We've all been doing that for 20 years already. That's nothing new, right? And so technically, this is not, I know we're talking a lot of technical terms, but I'm here to tell you the tech is much easier this time around. What's really important, right, is like situational awareness. And that's going to come from like doing an inventory of your environment and spending the time getting your hands dirty. And I think in that, right, that's the most important work you can be doing right now. And what's great is, like, to Patrick's point, like, Elouise didn't even know she's building like a research agent. Well, guess what? There's people on your procurement team. You don't know what they're going to build for you. but you're never going to know until you let them get in there and mix it up. So, and I will say, I also was 20, 25 years in this game. I've never seen procurement leaders so ready to try something new. Like that's never been their game ever.
Well, I think it's a generational change because we are,
Mm-hmm.
which is a topic for a different webinar, but we also have sort of a generation of CPOs leaving and a new one coming in. So I do think that's important because that newer generation is younger and more technically adept.
Yeah. And as far as the skills that I would say to, definitely echo everything that Matt said, plus 100 to all of that, I like to, when I do like education sessions, or like executive leadership conferences and stuff like this, I always say like, hey, everyone in the room, like take out your phone, go to the app store right now, download ChatGPT or download the Gemini app or download both, right? And just start there on your phone. Like don't even pick up a computer. Don't even think about business stuff either. Start asking it how to find the best recipe for chocolate chip cookies. Start asking it about that weekend project that you're working on. Maybe you're, working on the sprinkler system at your house. Start asking it about the sprinkler system at your house. Just talk to the thing. Get your reps in, like Matt is saying. Just try them, right? In a very, kind of innocent setting, right? Like it's a consumer facing, it'll connect to your Gmail account, it doesn't have to be about business yet. Just start to familiarize yourself with the technology because what you're going to first start learning is like, hey, when I ask the right questions or when I ask a question a certain way, I get a better response. Guess what? You're learning prompt engineering, right? We don't have to say that it's prompt engineering, but you're learning it, right? And it's the same way as we think about years back when, Google searching was a thing, when people started really getting into SEO. It's like, there's some people that can really search things on Google really well. And then there's other people that are just asking terrible questions. It's like, that's a skill set that you learn, like how to Google, how to do SEO. Prompt engineering and how to ask the right questions to LLMs, it's going to be a skill set that you learn as well, but you have to practice it. Like you have to really get into it. And then when you're ready to take that step beyond like your consumer device, you can start going onto your laptop and you can start, let's try Notebook LM, let's try AI Studio, let's try ChatGPT. Start trying things on your desktop, start uploading PDFs. And again, just sort of build up. Don't think about it as like, oh my God, I need $100 million to invest in this like AI strategy for my company. Don't think about it that way. Like start super small. Like you can start literally right now as soon as this call is done. You can actually do it while we're on the call. Like it's that easy,
Yeah, and I think you both made an interesting point because when you said prompt engineering, my stomach tightened. It's like,
Yeah.
because there's so much, like it's such a loaded term, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh my God, like, but what I do, what I do with Notebook LM has nothing to do with prompt engineering, and yet that's exactly what I'm doing,
Exactly
and
what you're doing. Yep.
yeah, and even when you said it, and I had that moment, it's like, oh yeah, I built an agent. But if you told me to go build an agent, I would just stare at the wall thinking, huh? Like, I don't even know where to start. And
Right.
so it really is fascinating. Okay, so a couple comments here as we get to the end. So Monica, how do I reconcile history with AI procurement? You'd be surprised, and as a historian, and I just sort of flag this without trying not to get too political, but if you want to see AI in use on a wide scale, look what's happening in Ukraine right now. And I actually talk about that, and there is a significant overlap, at least in terms of technological adoption. So in studying sort of Ukraine history and war and whatnot, you can start to look at where we are today. And so whenever people tell me we can't, like the technology's too hard, the technology's too this, it's too that. I mean, just look what's happening over there, and you will see the most sophisticated use of technology, robotics, drones, etc. So anyway, you'd be surprised that history is embedded in everything in business. We got some recommendations if you're on the Microsoft. So Matt, I'm just double checking. If you're on Microsoft 365, you can use Copilot and Azure OpenAI. And anything else you want to add to that, Matt?
Yeah, I think like to Patrick's point, I mean, do a little digging. Perplexity has something out now. I will just say at a high level, right? I think they're all comparable, and I'm not just saying this because Patrick's here. I think Gemini, I think Google's done a terrible job of messaging, frankly, because I think Gemini is the best model out there right now. for a general use case in the enterprise. Best model for a lot of different reasons. But I think Anthropic Claude is widely regarded as like the best RAG language model, right, Patrick? Would you agree with that? I mean, you're more technical than me, but I think it's by all the data scientists, all the scoring and stuff. So there's that. But yeah, I'll put together, like, I'll send something over to Claire and Sophie afterwards, some resources if you guys want to check it out. But just do a little searching. Like Patrick said, I'll tell you myself, like, I'm doing a presentation, I'll save it as a PDF, and I'll have one of my agents look at it before I send it out and just say, hey, what do you think? And you'd be surprised. You'd be like, wow, I never thought of that, or I'm not listening to that. But just get your reps. That's how you do it.
Yeah,
All right.
I have a PDF of resources, by the way, that I'll send to the team afterwards, and we can share it out as well.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, so we are at time. I recommend following both of these folks. Matt's had a couple of really popular posts that go, I don't know if they went viral, but they certainly had a lot of popularity. And as mentioned, Patrick has a lot of great content out there. So thank you both. This was an amazing conversation and absolutely so much fun. I no doubt we could have gone for a couple more hours, but there are other panelists. There's more to do in this day. So thank you to Connect House and Sophie and Claire for putting this on, and enjoy the rest of the sessions, and feel free to reach out to any of us. I'll put that out there. I didn't ask Matt or Patrick, but reach out to any of us and be sure to follow us all on LinkedIn. Thank you.